Hello there, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to our webinar all about the IR Secure Mailbox in Sage 50 Payroll. My name's Duncan, I'm your host and presenter today, and we are joined by my colleague Calvin, who's standing by in the background, ready to answer any questions. Let's now take a look at what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we're going to start with a demonstration on how to set up the IR Secure Mailbox in Sage 50 Payroll. We're then going to demo how to check for notifications and how to directly apply changes to the relevant employees. And then we're going to look at the other side of the secure mailbox, and that is the option to send P46 car forms directly to HMRC. I'm going to finish with my 4 top tips all around the secure mailbox, and we will stick around as promised at the end to make sure that we've answered any of your questions. And we will get on with our first section on setting up the IR Secure Mailbox. So first of all, to explain what it is, it's an integrated mailbox within Sage 50 Payroll. It connects to your online service and it will then retrieve notices such as tax code notices or student loan notices directly from HMRC, giving you the option to then apply them to the relevant employees. Now, in order to use this, there's a couple of things you'll need. So first of all, you need to know your user ID and password for HMRC's PAYE online service. And the good news is you're already using those details to submit your FPS, so they should already be recorded in your program. And for those of you still receiving paper notifications from HMRC, you will need to enable or switch to electronic notifications. So we've put the steps on how to do that on the slide. It involves logging in to the HMRC online services portal and then amending your notice preferences so that you get them electronically rather than in the post. So if you haven't done that yet, you won't be able to use the integrated mailbox, but as soon as you do switch to electronic, you will then be able to retrieve that information in your program. So first thing we're going to take a look at is the e-submission settings. So this is where you store the user ID and password. It's also where you record your contact details. So it's a good opportunity to make sure they are up to date. And there's a few configuration options which I will go through in the demo. So let's just bring those slides down. And we are in our payroll program already. So you will need to be signed in as someone that has access to the e-submission settings. So it may need to be the manager username or a user that does have full access. And from the e-submissions tasks, which I'm already on down here, we're going to go ahead and jump into e-submission settings. So there are 2 tabs within the setting. The settings tab contains your company name and your PAYE reference, and that's taken from your company settings. And this is also where you've recorded your user ID and password for your PAYE online account. Now, if you've been submitting to HMRC, you don't need to do anything with those details. They are already correct and stored. But if ever you change your password for PAYE online, you would also need to update it in this area as well. Couple of options just to point out on the settings tab. So there is a checkbox that you can select where the secure mailbox will automatically check for new messages when you open it. So if you want that to happen, you can tick the box. It saves you having to check for new mail manually. And there's this one that will come into play later on in the demo, which will clear a P46 car flag once that form has been submitted to HMRC. So we can have that selected and it will just clear a flag within the employee record, which will then indicate that you have sent a P46 car. The other tab here is the contact details. So make sure you've got up-to-date contact details entered in this section. And if you are submitting as an agent on behalf of clients, you also need to fill in the area here on the right-hand side. So this is where you find your e-submission settings. I'm going to simply save the current settings and we will then close out. So that's it for setup. Assuming that you've got electronic notifications enabled in your HMRC online account, you can record your contact details. You can decide whether you want to automatically check for new messages when you open the mailbox, and then that is the setup done. So with that enabled, what we can now do is we can check for these notifications and we can apply changes directly to the relevant employee. So what types of notices can you receive in the secure mailbox? Well, here's a list of the main ones. So the first one, the P6 and P6B, is a tax code notice. So notifying a change of employee's tax code and previous pay and tax. So you would get these typically mid-tax year, and often you would receive them if you've taken on a new starter who didn't have a P45 from their previous employer. And that will often update the tax code plus the previous pay and tax from their previous employer. The next one is a P9 notice. So these are seasonal. These are changing the tax code at the start of a new year. So these tend to be sent in February or March at the end of the current tax year to take effect from the 6th of April. You've got SL1 or PGL1 notices, which is a notice to start a student or postgraduate loan deduction. Then the SL2, PGL2 notices are stop notices for student or postgraduate loans. And then you'll also get responses to national insurance verification requests in your mailbox. And you might get a notice for employees where you need to make a change to an NI number. So these are the types of forms that you would receive into the mailbox, which you'll be able to do directly in your payroll software. So let's now take a look at how this feature works. So if I bring the slides down again, I'm going to return to my payroll tasks just for a moment, and I'm just going to switch on the payroll process map. As if you use this process map, you'll see that there's a task right near the start of the pay run to check your secure mailbox for any new tax code notices. And this is a good habit to get into at the start of each pay run. Check to see if anything new has come through, and then you can apply the change in time for whenever it is effective. Now, because I want to show you a range of different notices, in today's demo, we are starting at the beginning of a tax year because I want to show you the P9 notices, which is a tax code change for a new tax year. And then we'll do month 2 as well and show you some of the other notices that can come through. So if you use the process map, Secure Mailbox is a link just here. Otherwise, you can go to the e-submissions tasks and you can open the IR Secure Mailbox by clicking on this link on the left-hand side. So let's do that right now, and you'll see that the mailbox has opened. Now, if I'd ticked the box to automatically check for new mail, it would currently be displaying a progress bar as it connects to my online mailbox and downloads any notices. But because I didn't tick that, I need to click the new mail option. So I need to check on demand. And because this is just a simulation, it goes through pretty quickly. But for you, you would see a progress bar move across as it connects to your mailbox and then downloads the latest notices. So in this example, you can see we've got 2 types of notice been received. We've got P9 notices, got a couple of them. If I click on the P9 folder, you can see it's a notice of coding for employee 2 and 6. These were both received back in February. And we have an SL1 notice, so student loan start notice for Mr. Employee 10. Now to view the details, it's a case of opening the notice. So you can click on it and you can click open, or you can double click it and it will open like so. If you've received a number of notices and you want to view them all at the same time, rather than doing it one by one, you can select multiple entries in this list. And the way you would do this, there's a few different ways actually, is you can either use these clear and swap buttons, which I'm pointing out here. So I can clear any selection and click swap. And you'll see that that has now highlighted both of the names in the list. And if I click open, it opens up the details of each notice. Alternatively, you can use Control or Shift on your keyboard to select multiple notices. So by holding Control, you can click on the specific names that you want to open, or if you hold Shift, you click on the first and last in a list, and that will then highlight everything in between. So clear and swap, holding the Control key or holding the Shift key, enables you to open more than one. So looking at these two notices, we've got a tax code change effective from the 6th of April, start of the new tax year. So one of them is changing to K570, another one is changing to 157L. It will identify the employee from its national insurance number. And if I'm happy with the details and I want to go ahead and apply the changes, I would simply click apply. So it's given me a confirmation message. Am I sure I want to continue? And I'm going to click yes. And you'll see the status of both of these are success. And that tells me that the change has been made effective from the date shown here. So what that means is when you get to the end of the tax year, if you've started to receive P9 notices for the new year, you're actually fine to go ahead and apply them straight away. And that change won't kick in until your process date is on or after the effective from date. So I'm just going to close this confirmation screen. And you'll see that the details are still showing right now. But if I close and then reopen the secure mailbox, that refreshes it and it will move those notices out. It will remove them. But let's have a look at our student loan notice now. So just the one of these, double click it. Again, it's given me the start date and the plan type. So it could be 1, 2, or 4 currently. And then I can apply that change. I can click yes to continue. And again, that one was successful. So don't worry that they're still showing. As soon as I close and reopen the mailbox, you'll see that it refreshes and those items have now been removed. But if I want to see an audit trail of what I've applied from the mailbox, I can simply open the e-submissions log here on the left-hand side. I go to the applied mail tab and you can see I've applied a couple of P9 notices. I can view the details like so, and also my student loan notification. And within the employee records, if I just highlight the 3 of them, if I go to the employment tab, we can see that the new tax code is in place, effective from the 6th of April, where previously it was 1288L. So that change has been made. Tax code change for the next employee. And for the student loan, it's automatically populated the student loan details based on the notice I received. So that's just a few of them, the P9 and the SL1 forms. What I will do is I will just update the records for month 1. And we'll move my date on to the next pay date, which in this demo is month 2. It'll be 31st of May in this example. And we'll take a look at some of the other types of notices you can get. So you can either get it from the process map, you can open the secure mailbox from here, or as we did before, we can go to e-submissions and then IR secure mailbox. I need to click on new mail. And this time we've got a P6 notice and an SL2. So with this P6 notice, it was for one of my new employees. So if I go ahead and open it, you can see I've got previous pay and previous tax, as well as the tax code that I'm being asked to use. And again, it has that effective from date. So main difference between a P9 and a P6 is one's mid-year, P6 is mid-year, and P9 is the start of a new tax year. So let's apply this change. You can see that one has been successful. We'll do the same with the student loan stop notice, which just shows me the stop date. So that has also been applied. And if I close out, I'll show you the 2 employees in question. So employee 1 was the student loan. So you can see the end date has been put in there for the student loan plan. And my new employee, this one down here, you can see it's amended the tax code, populated the effective from date, And in the year-to-date values, it's also filled in the previous employment figures. So rather than transcribing the information from a paper notice or from something you've viewed on the HMRC website, using the secure mailbox, you can apply those changes directly. So let's just recap those steps for you. So this is what the mailbox looks like. It organizes the notices into folders. So they can then be selected and opened. You can check the details on screen, then you can go ahead and apply them. If you have multiple notices, you can open them all at once. And to refresh the mailbox, don't forget close and go back in. That will remove anything that has already been applied. So that's the main function of the mailbox, but it does have a secondary use, which may be useful for some of you if you provide company cars available for private use. And that is the ability to submit a P46 car form in the event that a new car is provided, a car is withdrawn, or a car is changed for one of your employees. So this form is required if you still use the P11D process to report your expenses and benefits. If you payroll the benefit in kind, you don't need to send a P46 car, but the car details are sent through in your FPS. So a quick look at how this works. I know many of you probably aren't using this, but if I open up an employee record, each employee record has a section to record company cars. So it's the cars and fuel tab just here. So you'll need to create a car record by clicking new car, and then you would run through the new car wizard. So I'm just going to put some reg details in, the make and model, date of registration, and in this case the CO2 emissions. And then we'll put the remaining details in as well. We'll say this was available from the start of the tax year. And once you've created a car record, stores the details in Payroll. It'll allow you to calculate the Class 1A national insurance in the following tax year. So for this car, because it was first used in this tax year, it's not showing any Class 1A right now. But it does prepare a P46 car form, which we can submit online. So it's tick the box, the flag to say it's required. It's chosen a reason for us, but we can choose an alternative reason where applicable. So we've provided a new car to this employee. We want to submit this information. So what we can do is we can go into the secure mailbox, and you'll see there's a section for HMRC submissions. And then just underneath, we can see that P46 car form. So submission deadline is every quarter for these forms. I've just selected it here. So I've selected the car details, linked to that employee. If I go ahead and click submit, that will then allow us to do an internet submission, sending that form to HMRC, rather than printing it out and sending it in the post. So you can see that that's now been successful. That's now dropped into our submitted items. And if we had ticked the box to clear the P46 car flag, which in this case I don't think we did, all that would have done is untick this box. So it's no longer required because we've already sent it. And that there is submitting a P46 car. So a little bonus for the secure mailbox there. And again, more info can be found on the link on the slide. Recap of how we set that up. We created the new car record by entering the car details. We clicked on the P46 car section and indicated why it's going to be sent. Make sure that box is ticked. And then in the mailbox, you've got that P46 car folder under HMRC submissions. And we went ahead and submitted it from there. Well, that's it for the main bit of the presentation, but I'm going to finish with my 4 top tips on using the secure mailbox. I think I've mentioned most of this during the webinar, but as a reminder, tip number 1 is that it is possible to select multiple notices in the secure mailbox and apply them all at the same time. So a few different ways we went through. You can use the clear and swap buttons if you want to highlight absolutely everything in that folder. You could hold Control and click to select individual notices, or you could hold Shift and click the first and last notice in a list to select those and everything in between them. And then you can open those notices, view the details on screen, and apply them all in one go. So that might be useful towards the end of a tax year, the start of a new tax year, if you have a number of P9 notices. Top tip 2, if you've just started using the secure mailbox and previously you were accessing the information on the website, you may want to get rid of some old notifications that have been downloaded. And the good news is you can select multiple notices, just as I've just described, and you would be able to remove them all in one go by clicking the delete option. So if you're just starting out, you're switching from the website to the integrated mailbox, this is something you may need to do. So select the notices you want to get rid of and hit delete. Tip number 3, what happens if you still see notices in your mailbox after they've been applied or deleted? Well, all you need to do is close and reopen the mailbox, which refreshes it, and that will then remove any applied or deleted notices from that list. So you saw in my demos, even after I applied the notifications, they were still there. It's just a refresh thing, close and reopen, and that will tidy it up for you. And last but not least, a reminder of where to check what you've already applied via the mailbox. You can check the Applied Mail tab in the eSubmissions log to view the details of the notices already applied. So once they've gone, go into the log, Applied Mail tab, click Details, and you'll see all of that information within the notice. And that does bring us to the end of the presentation. So we've got a few minutes left where you can submit any of your final questions. Whilst you're doing that, I'll just remind you where you can find further support on all things Sage 50 Payroll. So I'd strongly recommend our Help Centre, which you can find online at sage.co.uk/help. You can also read our support articles by clicking any of the help icons in your program. So got a comprehensive knowledge base of articles, many are linked to in the handout. You can read our support guides. You can see what other webinars are coming up by following the webinars link at the top of the Help Centre. And you'll also find our recorded webinars from the same area. Various videos embedded into the articles, as well as the contact options for our support team should you need to get in touch. Also, another great resource, Sage University at sageu.com. This is free for you to use. You just need to register and create a profile at sageu.com. You can do our e-learning courses, you can do online certification, and we have a range of bite-sized learning courses as well for you to get stuck into. So a great little resource there, especially for those new to the software. So with just a few minutes left in the session, I just want to thank you for attending and give you that final opportunity to send your questions through or to download the handout. So use the options on the right-hand side if you want to do any of that. If you're leaving us now, I just want to thank you for joining us at the webinar. Look out for a follow-up email that will be arriving later this afternoon, as that will contain a link to the recording of today's session, which you can pass on to your colleagues if they'd find it useful, and a link to our webinar survey, which should also pop up when you hit the exit button or when we close the session. So really important, if you can, to leave us any feedback that you have on today's webinar, any suggestions for other topics, what we've done well, what we can improve on, as we do read every single one, and it does help us to improve these sessions moving forward. So I'm going to take a breather just for a moment to give you the chance to send through any final questions, and I'll come back to say goodbye when we are ready to wrap up. So I will speak to you shortly. Okay, so we did have a couple of questions in the session. Thank you for sending those through. We have sent through the answers as well to them. And we are now at the end of our scheduled 30 minutes. So I'm going to take this final opportunity to thank you all for joining me at the webinar today. Hope you found it useful. If you could take a minute to complete our exit survey as you leave, I would very much appreciate that. And do look out for your follow-up email arriving later today. So that is it from me. Thanks once again for joining us, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you on some of our other webinars in the future. Goodbye for now.